Hello everyone. Today we'll talk about AWS Well-Architected Framework. We will see what are the different pillars of Well-Architected Framework and what value it brings into the table. We will see what are the best practices of Well-Architected Framework, when and how to apply Well-Architected Framework in our real-time projects. Before we start, I would like to give a quick introduction about me. My name is Ankit Kumar Gupta, and I'm working in AWS since 2012. I'm an AWS APN ambassador, AWS community hero, and also contributing to the AWS community since 2014. So, what is AWS Well Architected Framework? Let's talk about it. AWS Well Architected Framework is a designed principle provided by AWS to you so that you can design your architecture based on the best practices. So what AWS has done it, they have come up with the design principles which can help you in taking the right decision about your architecture. You can take a decision about any activity, whether it will be pros or cons, and you can proceed further. AWS Well Architected Framework helps you in key concepts. It also gives you the overall idea about your architecture so that you can constantly improve your architecture. So, what is the importance of AWS Well Architected Framework? Let's look at out the traditional world where we used to have like a central dedicated team to help us with the architecture strategy. We used to have a software architect, we used to have a technical architect, we used to have a network architect, and other different segments like cost and security. So what was the challenge at that time? The challenge was we used to have a different teams who used to provide a different guidance, and we were strict to a certain boundaries. The value which AWS Well Architected Framework brings into the table is using this framework, you can handle all kind of architecture related issues, be the security, be the reliability, be the performance efficiency, or be the cost. Everything is taken care by the AWS Well Architected Framework. AWS solution architects helping the customers since multiple years, and what they have seen is what are the different workloads and how those workloads are performed during, let's say, before go live, or let's say after go live. So they have understand how different workloads behaves in various scenarios, and what they have done it, they have captured these best practices and put together in this well architected framework so that we as a larger audience, or we as a partners, can leverage this well architected framework in designing the architecture. The biggest questions here is when we should apply the AWS well architected framework. Most of the customers and most of the people ask this question, when we should apply AWS well architected framework. And while working with AWS well architected framework since last 2 years, what we have seen is people bring this well architected framework in every phase of software development life cycles. So let's say when you are in a design phase, you can bring this well architected framework to understand how your design looks like. When you are in a development phase, you can do a well architected framework review to understand where you currently fits into the architecture, what are the gaps, what gaps you need to fill before go live. And it is very much recommended to do a well architected review before go live of your application so that you can understand where your application architecture fits in front of well architected framework review. And what we have seen after go live, it's very much important to do a well architected review in every 6 months. The reason behind that is AWS always innovates on behalf of their customers. AWS always learns the feedback of their customers and they come up with new services and new features which can really add value to the architecture. So it's very much important to do a well architected review every 6 months to adopt new things or new technology or to remediate whatever the lag which we have in the architecture. And what we have seen it, if the customer do a well architected review every 6 months, it can help the customers in reducing the cost by, let's say, 10% to 20% or 30% by adopting the new services and new technologies. Well-architected framework has also helped the customers in improving their overall security of the infrastructure. So there are various pillars through which the AWS framework has helped the customers. And now these days, even the customer are asking like, we want to get it reviewed our well architect. We want to get it review our architecture using well architected framework. Let us look at out some of the general design principle behind this well architected review. And these are the most common things which we heard in this cloud journey. Stop guessing your capacity needs. So in the cloud, we stop guessing it. We should provision the resources, whatever we are going to consume it, so that it should not be overutilized or underutilized. We should test our system at production scale. So before go live, we should test our system in a such a way that it can handle the production workload. Automate to make architectural experimentation easier. So automation is not a buzzword in the cloud because you get a right tools, right services to automate your infrastructure or architecture. So always adopt for automations when you want any experimentation on your architectural. Allow for evolutionary architecture. So it's not like a traditional word where everything are static, right? In cloud, you always design for evolutionary. It should not be fixed to a certain things. Tomorrow, just to give an example, let's say today you are setting up site-to-site VPN with AWS and the on-premise world using transit gateway. You are opening door for, let's say, tomorrow if there is a new on-prem location will come into the picture, it will be very easier for you to route the traffic between the two on-premise network and AWS. Or let's say tomorrow 20 on-prem network will also come into the picture, it will be very easier for you to route the traffic between various locations and your AWS account using transit gateway. So you should look for a AWS services which can help you in evolutionary architecture. Drive architecture using data. Data is a key concept. So we should take always the decision using the data. Just to an example, if you are having few GB of file or few MB of file, let's say we thought of using certain uh, RDS in order to store it, these kind of relational data. But let's say when the data size grow and when we get a different format of data and we really want to do a OLAP kind of operations, we should have a redshift into the architecture to store such a huge data. So it's always important to drive the architecture using data. Improving through game days. Game day, everyone likes that because game days is the one where we test our system, uh, taking the consideration of real life scenario. So it's very important to test our system through game days. These are the some general design principles of well architected framework. Now let us look at out how this AWS well-architected pillar has been designed. So AWS well-architected pillar has been designed basis of five important key pillars. And these are the key pillars which we face day-to-day basis. Operational excellence. is again a critical pillar which we see in a daily basis. Security is the most critical thing for any customer in the cloud. Reliability, performance, and cost optimizations. These are the five critical pillars of well-architected framework. And on the basis of these five pillars, we evaluate any architecture, we set any architecture best practices. Let us look at out each of the pillar in a phase wise. So first, look at our operational excellence pillars. So what is operational excellence pillars? So operational excellence pillars helps you or give you a recommendations on how your system will operate on the cloud. This is not only on the design or development phase, but after go live also how your system should behave so that it should be operationally excellence, right? So some of the key design principle for operational excellence pillar is perform operation as a code. So these days, everybody would like to leverage infrastructure as a code, right? So you should try to leverage most of the operations as a code. That will be better. Just to give you an example, if you want to deploy 4 EC2 instances in one RDS database, you should have a cloud formation script to deploy your entire stack. If you want to do any kind of patch management, you should have a system manager in place. So look it out from various possible way where you can perform operation as a code. Coming back to the second important thing is make frequent small reversible changes. So whenever you found like your operational wise, if you want to improve it, always feel free to make changes in your operational processes. Let's say you are running 200 servers, right? And you want to monitor these 200 servers using CloudWatch or maybe using config. You want to keep track of configurational changes of your resources, or you want to have a guard duty into the place to review your infrastructure. Always try to you know put everything into the place to make sure that operationally you are excellent. Refine operational processes frequently. Whenever you feel that, let's say tomorrow AWS will come up with any new service. Let's say they come up with a security hub, which helps you with the CIS compliance guidelines. Always try to see how you can incorporate this service into your current architecture. What values actually it brings into the table. Try to see whether it will address your current concern of security or whether it will improve your entire operational excellence part. Try to see from those angles and try to incorporate that. Anticipate for failure. Always design your system in a such a way that it should anticipate for the failure. Learn from all operational failures. So after go live, or let's say before go live, if you face any kind of failures, always try to note down those points or those items so that you can learn from those operational issues. It can help you in future remediations. You can build ML model on top of that, right? So that if such an issue will come into the future, automatically it can be remediated or it can suggest a best possible solution. Let's move ahead to the security pillar. We know Dr. Werner Vogels always says this famous quote: dance like no one is watching, encrypt like everyone is doing. Security is one of the key pillars in the cloud platform where Dr. Werner always highlights to encrypt everything, whether data in rest or data is transit. Security being a major concern for every customers. So we should try to build a strong identity foundations for the customer by using IAM or by using AWS single sign-on or by using Active Directory. Try to build a strong identity foundation. You can do using providing the list privileges to your IAM users or to creating a custom policies for your users, or creating a rule for talking of the various services. Enable traceability. Always try to enable logging and monitoring for your servers by enabling CloudTrail logs or be the VPC flow logs or any kind of logging mechanism which is available into the system which can help you in security purpose. Always make sure that you enable it, which can help you in giving the granular level of details about the network. Apply security at all layers. This is very important. So be the applying the security group at the server level or applying the NACL at the subnet level or applying any kind of firewall at the load balancers level or API gateway level or CloudFront level. We should always try to apply the security at the different layers so that our system should be secure, and we should have a multiple roadblock for any kind of attacks. We should try to automate the security best practices. So be the patching of the operating system where you want to patch, let's say 500 servers, right? How we can automate those process, or be the capturing of the CloudTrail logs from multiple accounts and creating a centralized account, or be the visualizing of the different logs in elk stack, how we can automate the things. This should be one of the key pillar of security. Protecting the data in transit and rest is one of the important thing. Be the EVS volume or be the S3 or be the RDS or be the Redshift or EMR cluster. It's very much important to encrypt the data at rest as well as transit. We should try to keep people away from the data. We should try to put the right mechanism so that the people will not directly access the data. We should prepare for all security events. So the security events could be anything. Let's say someone is trying to scan the ports, uh, uh, and if you have any port open, so we should try to prepare for all security events. We should have a guard duty in place so that we should know like if anyone is scanning your ports, and you can get alerts. Maybe it's a high priority alert or low priority alert. You'll be get alerted and you can take a remediate actions. So these are some of the key design principles of the security pillar, with the help of which you can design your architecture in a such a way that it can it can be secure to run on AWS cloud. Moving ahead for reliability pillar. So reliability is again an important pillar which helps you in designing your architecture in a such a way that it should be reliable on AWS cloud. Some of the design principles in which reliability pillar is based out of is automatically recover from failure. So you should design your system in a such a way that it should automatically recover. And one of the good example for this is I would like to say is EC2 auto recovery. You can enable EC2 auto recovery, and whenever there is a host level of failure, automatically the system will start with another host, and you'll get the same IP, right? So you should try to see how you can recover from failures. Test recovery processors. You should have all recovery processors in hand so that you can test your system. Scale horizontally to increase aggregate workload availability. So we know like we have auto scaling feature within AWS with the help of which we can scale up and scale down the resources based on the user demand. So we should try to see while designing the architecture, right, how reliable is my system, right, based on the aggregate workload. We should stop guessing capacity. It's not an on-premise world where we say like we need a 500 GB of box and we are only utilizing 100 GB. We should we should try to take decision based on the actual utilizations or the actual performance of the system. manage change in automations. So whatever changes we want to do it, right? Let's say horizontally scaling the system or vertically scaling the system, right? We should try to automate most of the things using automations in a place, right? And AWS provides various services which can help you in automating the infrastructure. Let's move ahead to the next pillar, which is performance efficiency. Performance is a key thing in AWS Cloud because until and unless you will provision the resources which are performance efficient, you will be either underutilized or overutilized. So it's always best practices to go through the performance of your system, be the EC2 instances or be the EBS volume. It's important to understand how your server are performing. So with respect to CPU, with respect to RAM, or with respect to another key parameter, it's important to understand your EC2 instances. Similarly, with respect to EVS volume, it's important that whether it's underutilized or whether it's giving you a specific throughput or giving you a specific latency or not. And I would like to talk about the cool service of AWS Compute Optimizer, which helps you in giving the directions what could be the right EC2 instance type for your workload, or what could be the right EVS volume for your workload. So Compute Optimizer is a service which is based on the machine learning model, which analyze the patterns of your server or of your services, and then it recommends what could be the best EC2 instance type, so that you should get the right and optimized instance type, which can help you in saving the cost and also improve you with overall performance side. Always try to go globals in minutes. What this means is AWS is having the 25 plus regions, and what it does is, right, every region give you flexibility to launch your resources within the AWS regions, which is nearer to your user, so that you can get a better latency. So always try to leverage the multi-region concept wherever it is applicable. Use serverless architecture wherever it is possible. So it's not a traditional world where you have to keep on running your server 24 into 7. Look it out for the architecture where you can use the serverless components like DynamoDB or API gateway, which can drastically help you in decreasing your cost. Experiment more often. This is a very common thing. You should try to experiment more with your system, especially when it's in a development phase. After go live also, you should try to build or clone your system and try to experiment more faster. Let's say tomorrow AWS is coming up with new instance type which can help you with reducing cost by 20% or improving performance by 20%. You should try to experiment with those instance types with, let's say, quality system and how it is working, and on the basis of that you can implement the same thing with the production system. These are some of the design principle of performance, and uh, being the performance is a critical pillar. In designing the architecture, we should make sure that we should preparing the right mechanism or not. Last but not the least, the cost optimization pillar. And let me tell you, cost is one of the key pillar in the cloud. Every CIO or CFO looks after for the cost. Uh, it starts from a design phase only when they start thinking about how much will be my cost, and they started estimating using AWS Simply Monthly Calculator. Be the any kind of applications, be the ERP applications or analytics application or machine learning applications. But what is the best practice in the cost side is, right, you always try to be aware about how you can make the cost saving. What are the different costing options is available on the cloud, so that you can take the better decision for your company, which can help you in saving the cost. Some of the design principle is implementing the cloud financial management, and what it means is creating a team of good people, right? who will be aware about the different costing mechanism of AWS, how AWS charges, because AWS charges with one service differently than the other service. So you should understand how it is getting charged for AMR, or how it is getting charged for Kinesis, or how is it getting charged for NAT gateway. If you understand the AWS consumption model or AWS billing model in a better way, you will be able to save your cost. Adopt a consumption model. AWS offers a various consumption model. Let's say for EC2, you have a on-demand instances. If you would like to run your instances for a few hours in a day, you can go for a on-demand instances where you have to pay hourly basis. But let's say if you have applications which require 24 into 7 kind of availability, you can go for a reserve instances. And within reserve instances, you have a 1 year reserve instances plan and 3 year reserve instances plan. AWS has also launched the saving plans, which can also gives you a more flexibility compared to the reserve instances. AWS also offers the spot instances, which you can also leverage based on your kind of workload. So it's very important to understand the different consumption model. Moving ahead, the next important design principles is measuring overall efficiency. You should always try to see whether your resources is properly sized or not, or you are paying and you are utilizing the same thing or not. Let's say currently you are running your EVS volume in GP2 and you are paying for 500 GB of disk, but you have not seen that the GP3 is also available in the market, right? Which can help you in getting the better performance, and also the cost will be reduced. So you should always try to measure the overall efficiency of your system. Stop spending money on undifferentiated heavy lifting. So as you know, like AWS takes care of the heavy lifting part, be the taking care of the entire data center, rack, and everything is taken care by AWS. So you should be stop spending money on these things. Analyze and attribute expenditure. So always try to make sure that you have a tagging strategy in the place, so that you'll be able to analyze the billing based on, let's say, center of excellence, or based on, let's say, different environments. You'll be able to get the cost. So these are the some of the design principles which we have for the cost optimization pillar. Now let us see how this well-architected framework has been already implemented in AWS. They have launched this well-architected tool in AWS console. So this comes as a service, right? And just to tell you, this is a free of cost service. You can go to the AWS console and just search for AWS well-architected tool, and you'll be able to find out this tool and launch it into the region wherever you want it. Once you launch this well architected tool, you can see in the dashboard, right, what are the different workloads you have been already reviewed or you want to review it, right? So just for an example, let's say today you are running Oracle workload on AWS, or let's say big data workload on AWS. What you can do is you can define your workload, right? What kind of workload you have. Let's say I'm running big data workload. I can define that my workload is big data workload. You can provide a brief description about your workload. Let's say you are doing real-time analytics on AWS. So you can provide these details here in the description section, right? Then you can provide the review owner details. So maybe any details you can provide here, any email ID you can provide here. So it will be reviewer email ID which you can provide here. then you have to tell AWS that whether your environment is production environment or pre-production environment. Let's say I want to review my pre-production environment. I'm just in a design phase. You have to tell that in which region you are currently running your workload. Let's say I'm running in Asia Pacific Mumbai region, right? AWS account ID is optional, architectural design is optional, and the other things are optional like industry and tax. Then you click on the next. In the next page, you'll get the various options. The first option is well-architected framework. So within well-architected framework, uh, all sort of best practices design guidelines will be there based on the five pillars which I just have talked about it, be the security or cost optimizations or reliability or performance efficiency. All sort of pillars will be there, and you'll be judged based on those pillars how your architecture fits. What AWS has also done is they are coming up with the various lenses which are specific to particular workload. So let's say currently you are running serverless workload. So you can go ahead for the serverless lens model here, and you will be asked the architecture question based on this serverless lens framework, right? So it's very important to figure out what kind of workload currently you are running. So currently you can see SaaS and serverless and FTR is available, and AWS is in a plan to launch the other type of lenses also, which can help you in designing the right architecture. What is the beauty of this well architected tool is that you can create a milestone. So let's say today in a design phase, if you are doing the well architected review, and what you find that your well architected review meets 70% of the criteria and 30% is left, then you can come back for those 30% in go live period. After go live or before go live, you again do a well architected review, and you again set the milestone that the first time when I did it, my architecture fits 70% of the thing which has been defined by well architected framework. And when I did the second time, I was able to remediate, let's say, 25%, and now my architecture, uh, you know, uh, carry out the 95% of the best things, right? So this is the way you can create a different kind of milestones, right? When you do a well-architected review, the reports will comes in a PDF format. You can download the report in PDF format, which will tell you which of the pillar, let's say security as a pillar. So within security, let's say up to what you are meeting the requirements as per the best practices guidelines, and where are you lacking. So it gives you a bird view on what you are doing currently and what you have to do and what it was expected to do as part of the best practices. Just to give you an example, let's say today you are provisioning server and attaching EVS volume, but today you are not encrypting the EVS volume, right? But as per the best practices, you should always encrypt the volume. So all sort of best practices guidelines you'll get using well-architected framework. We have a features to share this workload. So currently you are doing the workload review in this account. You can share this workload with any other account. So this kind of features are there, and using this well-architected review, you'll be able to get how many are high risk things are there in your account or how many medium risk things are there in account based on these five pillars, right? So with that, we have covered today the AWS well architected framework, and I would suggest you to go through more about it in AWS documentations so that it will help you in designing your architecture. Thank you very much for joining today's session.